So I was unemployed for about 5 months because, when I got laid off, I got a severance package, which was a very generous package. So I started living on the package that I had, and then I started trading. I lost pretty much most of my package, and then I had to, and I was not still consistent in that time, so I had to get a job. And again, I was lucky that I was in a Pacific time zone because, as I mentioned earlier, you can start trading early in the morning and you can finish trading by 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you can have your job at 9 o'clock. So I did have a job at 9 to 5, and, I was trading in the morning and then, finish at 8 o'clock. And Vancouver is a small city. We don't have a big commute. So, usually by 8:30 I was ready and I getting to my work at 9 o'clock. And I had to do that for a year, about more than a year, because I still were not consistent enough to, make a living out of trading. And I think it's very, very important for people to keep a job somehow to pay the bills during the learning curve. The pressure on you that you have to pay the bills very soon, that is a big psychological barrier to become a successful trader. If you have somehow a job that you can pay the bills so your life is not dependent on the income from trading, that would be very, very powerful for your future. So one thing that I really learned, and it changed my trading, was I have to take this seriously. You have to do it either right or you shouldn't bother trading, because you are competing with the sharpest mind in the world. You are competing with professional traders who are equipped with the best softwares, best internets, best education, and best mentoring. So don't bother trading if you really don't want to invest in your education or in the proper platform or proper tools that you need for trading. When I started trading, I was using one of these Canadian banks as a broker. It was not a direct access, so my orders sometimes would take about 1 minute or 2 minutes to get filled. I was just losing money, and because it was a joke. You can't day trade with a slow platform. You really need the direct access software, hotkeys. Your orders have to get filled immediately, less than a second. The only thing that I realized was, I think it changed the direction of my trading career, was I realized that this is a serious thing. This is not something that you can mess around with and see maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. If you want to take it seriously, you have to devote some energy and resources to that, and you have to invest in your business, and then you can take it off. And we are living in a very competitive world. Everything is competitive. In corporate life, there is a competition. Businesses, you open a coffee shop. If there is good market, there are 10 other coffee shops next week they open. So it's a very competitive environment. Same as trading. Trading is also a business. It's a very competitive business. So you have to do it right, or just go home. Don't bother doing that.
The reason why most either traders fail or they don't get as far as they want to isn't because of talent, but it's because they're just not practicing the right way. And so you might ask, what's the right way? Well, we can definitely talk about that today. But for me, that's truly what sustains good trading is the continued effort to get better and better. Because like you said, and again, I said in the beginning, things are impermanent in trading. There isn't some place that you get to where, the sky opens up and the money just starts falling in. You always have to get better and better, because guess what? The markets are always changing. We know that already. And number two, other people are getting better. So if you're not getting better and others are getting better, then guess what? They're going to leapfrog you. And so it's our task to continue to work on our edges to make sure that they stay sharp. We've heard that saying, practice makes perfect, but what's really true is perfect practice makes perfect. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example, right? So here's an example that Anders Ericsson, the guy I just talked about, gave in his book called Peak, which just came out this year. It's a really, really good book for folks who want to really delve into this idea of meta learning. And so, he says, you don't get better at playing the game. So in trading, you don't get better by trading. People might scratch their head and say, what do you mean you don't get better at trading? I heard that I need to spend 10,000 hours looking at screens and then I'll be good at trading. But if you actually think about what it is, that's actually a bit of a myth, because doing something over and over again doesn't actually make you better. In fact, it's a recipe for stagnation and maybe even overall decline after a while, because trying harder doesn't make you any better. Yeah, it's actually about doing things and working on things, the things that you want to be working on, and cultivating that so you're getting better at those things. So I'll give you an example. So think about tennis, right? So when you first go out on the court, you get yourself a ball and a racket. Maybe the first thing you do is you practice by hitting against the backboard, right? And you hit the ball, and eventually you realize I'm pretty bad at this. I can barely hit the ball. I can barely it comes back. I hit myself sometimes. I may want to get a coach to teach me how to play the game. So you go off, you get yourself a coach. You see a coach maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and you get good enough where you can now get on the court with some friends. You get on the court with some friends, and after a few months, you're playing a game. It's actually a 3-set game now, and you're actually able to play the whole set, the whole match without being overly tired or without breaking down too much. Now, guess what? At that point, you may even be able to, a few months out, you may even be able to play a whole match and not even think about playing, right? You just show up to the game, you play against a number of different people, and you can play the whole match out. But at that point, as I said, guess what? You're actually not getting any better at that point. Because if you don't work on your game, you're not getting any better. Because what's actually happening is that, that nagging backhand of yours that doesn't seem to be getting better, it doesn't get any better. And in fact, some of the savvier tennis players, they begin to recognize that you really have a really bad backhand. And they start to take advantage of this by exploiting your weaknesses. So it's not until you actually begin to identify and approach the fact that you actually have a bad backhand and begin to practice that backhand, can you get any better at it? So that's the area that we have to watch out for, is that anything you repeat over and over again, that kind of gets wired in such a way that it becomes very, very difficult to unlearn. So for a lot of traders, it's a combination of both learning to do things the right way and also unlearning things that they may have learned along the way that no longer serve them.
I think most traders would take, if they really put in the time, 2 to 3 years to become profitable. I also want to say, a lot of traders think that all you have to do is learn a dozen candlestick patterns and you're going to take money from Goldman Sachs. And that's not the way it works. I can tell you that the traders who tell me that they're making thousands of dollars a day are traders who, take tons of notes. They write their own manuals. They rewrite my stuff in a personal way, in correspondence with what they're doing. So the people who are making a lot of money are, really putting a lot of time in. They're spending a lot of effort trying to understand what the markets are doing. One false belief is when a trader starts out, there's a perfect trade. They look on the internet and they see a chart and they see a great reversal setup and they think, oh, I'm going to trade that tomorrow, and it doesn't come. Yeah. And it's because most setups look bad, and really great setups happen very rarely. And another false belief is that all the big hedge funds have these secret patterns that they're not going to tell anyone. They have these secret. They have a goose laying golden eggs, and that's really not true at all. If you look at any chart, let's say a 5-minute chart of the E-mini or of anything, crude oil, gold, anything, and you see this big volume every minute of the day, and that's because there are reasons to buy and reasons to sell every minute of the day. And if you know how to read the charts, you can structure a reasonable buy and you can structure a reasonable sell any minute of the day. 10% of the day, the market's in a strong breakout. Let's say it's a strong bull breakout. You're only going to make money buying. But 90% of the day, the market's either in a channel or a trading range, and you can make money at any second buying or by selling. If you structure the trade correctly, which means using an appropriate stop, and if you're able to scale in appropriately, it doesn't matter if you're at the high. You can make money buying at the high. You can make money selling at the low, as long as you manage your trade correctly. Use the appropriate stop and scale in. And traders just don't know that. I mean, they just don't accept that. They think there's some magic to it, and there's not.
I must have spent thousands and thousands upon, learning. And of course, I was looking for Holy Grail throughout this time. And at the end of it, I just came up with something that works for me. I think it's very difficult to do something like this. So I went and actually did an MBA as well. And in my MBA, I went to Cornell University. So in my class, I had this guy who actually was, sat right beside me. He was pension fund manager. So he managed a huge pension fund. And there were a couple other people who were in the trading field. And I sat with them and I talked to them. They were all doing MBA with me. And I found that it's hard to learn everything on your own. They go through some fairly rigorous training. And I've worked in the bank for many years as well. I have talked to traders there. And the training that they put them through and the stuff that they have to go through and read up on, the research they have to do, I think it's very difficult to do it on your own. So understanding like the economic concepts, right? Why is the market moving? And then learning how to do technical analysis. I suppose one could do it on your own, especially with, YouTube and a lot of free things being available on the internet. The only thing that I find that is missing throughout that would be the step-by-step process. Just, where do you start? I remember when I first started trading, this was years ago when I first moved to Toronto, and I started trading full-time. So I set up my office at home, and I didn't have kids at the time. So I took up one of the rooms in my condo and set up my system. And I would come to the charts, wake up in the morning, come to the charts, look at a technical level, and I would place a trade. I had no concept of what else was going on in the market. And this was me trading full time, right? And I had a decent sized account, but I didn't know what was going on in the market. So all throughout the US, when they were doing quantitative easing, I was actually buying the US dollar. I'm like, oh my God, that was terrible. So every morning I've developed this process where I do an overview of the market just to kind of get the lay of the land. And then I jump into technicals.